Thank you so much. Once again, we see how culture can build bridges efficiently. We think it's common knowledge or it's commonality to have empathy. We see in today's world, it's not always like that. So this panel really gives us hope to proceed in a better, more hopeful way, inshallah. Where is my
Here.
Oh, there you are, Yunus.
Just what a fantastic human-centered panel discussion we just concluded with Federica finally stepping on stage as a moderator slash speaker. Hopefully, we'll see that more in future editions of the MEM. And we're officially halfway through the forum. We have 2 more panel discussions that we'll be hosting. And I am honored to introduce the 3rd panel, titled Shared Waters, Shared Futures, Building Cooperation Through Water Diplomacy. And I'll have my colleague Diana introduce our esteemed speakers.
Thank you so much. Shukran, Yunus. So it's my great pleasure to ask Natasha Carmi, Water Peace Program Manager, on the stage. أهلا وسهلا Natasha. يا وينك? Please. Where is Natasha? Natasha? وينها? So I'm sure she's coming. Yeah? So Federica, can you see if Natasha's outside maybe? Because she was just here. While we're waiting for Natasha, who will be here shortly, I'm asking on stage Hamza Saidi. أهلا وسهلا. تفضل. Come. Yes, wonderful. أهلا وسهلا يا ناتاشا. تعالي بسرعة. تفضل.
I'm pleased to invite our second Moroccan speaker, Mr. Jauad Al-Kharraz, CEO of WECEN, Water Energy Climate Experts Network. Please. And our final speaker is Maysoon Al-Zoubi. She is the project manager at Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Please join me on the stage.
أهلا وسهلا يا Maysoon. And the moderator of today's panel is Professor Ilaria Espa. She's Professor of International Economic Law at USI here in Lugano and a Senior Research Fellow at the World Trade Institute in Bern, our capital. Benvenuta. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone, from my side as well. It is really a pleasure to be participating in this edition of MEM with a wonderful set of panelists. So I'm not going to take long. I just would like probably to say that we shift with this panel from culture diplomacy to water diplomacy now, probably contrary to what has been mentioned in the panel before us on culture, it's difficult to define water. It's less difficult to define water, but it doesn't make it any less difficult to deal with water diplomacy and to try to build bridges through really very many hands-on projects that we're going to hear about from all of our speakers. So I think our panel is going to have a really practical approach because we have really a wonderful fortune, which is to really hear from real-life experiences, what are the different challenges, but also what are the opportunities to work through water diplomacy and really create that trust, that dialogue that was mentioned also during the panel before ours. So I'm actually very pleased to give the floor to Maysoon, who's working for the Food and Agriculture Organization, but she's also been acting as the managing chairman of the committee of the Blue Peace Middle East platform. And I think we can learn a lot from how this platform has been managed thanks to your contribution, and we would like to see what lessons that you learned from this experience could tell us about how important it is inclusivity in drafting cooperative arrangements in this space. Thank you so much, Maysoon.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. First of all, it's my honor to join the MAM Summit 2024 and to discuss this very vital discussion on how water diplomacy can foster regional cooperation and stability. For being the chair of the managing committee, I'm privileged to share with you the journey, progress, and future vision of our initiative, which is the Blue Peace Middle East Initiative. But first, I would like to thank the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation for their commitment, dedication to the Blue Peace Middle East Initiative, and express our sincere wish to strengthen and further cultivate our relationship. This is our opportunity to collaborate and innovate, to deliver sustained, inclusive prosperity, to raise ambition and leave no one behind. The Blue Peace Middle East Initiative was founded with a transformative mission to turn the water from potential source of tension into a powerful instrument for fostering dialogue, building trust, and achieving long-term resilience. This vision is championed by His Royal Highness Prince Al-Hassan bin Talal, whose unwavering commitment to dialogue and cooperation underpins our efforts. Since its establishment, Blue Peace Middle East has grown into a dynamic, multi-stakeholder platform uniting governments, academic institutions, society, and youth leaders. Our geographic scope extends across several countries in the Middle East, including Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon, Turkey, Iran, and Syria. This broad engagement allows us to facilitate dialogue even among nations with historically complex relationships, promoting the idea that shared waters can indeed lead to shared future. The initiative is anchored into two core pillars, each playing a crucial role in achieving our mission. The first pillar is policy dialogue. At the heart of this pillar is the regional mechanism. We establish this governance structure that facilitates high-level, multi-country dialogue and decision-making as a mechanism that ensures key stakeholders have a platform to negotiate, align policies, and resolve disputes peacefully. Our work focuses on addressing the transboundary waters challenges in systems like Tigris and Euphrates, as well as promoting integrated solutions through water, energy, food nexus approach to ensure sustainable and equitable use of shared water resources. Through these dialogues have resulted in aligning policy framework that promote cooperation and conflict prevention. The other pillar is research and education, hosted by the Water Diplomacy Center, which is in Jordan. This pillar focuses on knowledge generation and capacity building. We partner with leading academic and research institutions to develop studies and research on water diplomacy and sustainable management that inform policy and practice. In October 2024, we launched Water Diplomacy Master Program designed to equip future leaders with the skills and knowledge needed to navigate complex transboundary water issues. Alongside with various training, program, and research initiatives. From technical workshops to leadership seminars, our training initiative through the Water Diplomacy Center empowers stakeholders with practical tools for sustainable water management. These efforts equip stakeholders with the tool to address complex transboundary water issues, bridging the gap between science, policy, and practice. Our main achievement, under building trust and cooperation, we have facilitated productive dialogues that foster trust between nations, even in politically sensitive contexts. Under empowering the next graduation through our Youth Ambassador Fellowship Program, we are nourishing a new generation of water leaders who carry forward our mission with passion and innovation. And we have here with us 2 ambassadors, one presented Iraq, other with Lebanon, but we have 6 ambassadors. Under climate change, recognizing the extensional threat of climate change, we have integrated resilience strategies in our programs, ensuring that communities are better equipped with manage water-related risk. Of course, innovative pilot project in 2025, we will launch scalable pilot project, including advanced irrigation techniques and nature-based solutions to address critical water challenges and promote sustainable practices. Our inclusive approach has also strengthened regional engagement. Observers like Syria and Iran, though not formal members, actively participate in our activities, underscoring our commitment to comprehensive regional cooperation. While we celebrate success, we remain acutely aware of challenges ahead of us: climate change, geopolitical tension, and the unsustainable exploitation of resources. This continues to threaten the regional stability. The challenges only strengthen us to resolve, enhance regional mechanism. We aim to further institutionalize water cooperation by strengthening governance framework and fostering robust regional mechanism. Expand, of course, capacity building by scaling up research and education program. We seek to develop a water network of informed, capable stakeholders across the region. And of course, promote innovation. From policy innovations to technological advancement, we are committed exploring and implementing solutions that ensure long-term water sustainability for a future generation. Our future depends on collective action. By working together, we can ensure that shared water unite us in a common purpose rather than divide us. In conclusion, the Blue Peace Middle East initiative stands as a testament to what we can achieve when shared water are viewed as opportunity, as a shared opportunities. Together, through dialogue, research, and education, we can turn the challenges of water scarcity into opportunities for cooperation, resilience, and sustainable development. I'll stop here and welcome any question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maysoon. I think this was really very much an important starting ground for our panel, because it's really a very, very important experience that you shared with us about the Blue Peace Middle East initiative. I would have a lot of questions, but in the interest of time, perhaps I would stress just a few points that you mentioned, because I believe they serve as to bridge towards Dr. Kharraz's intervention, because you touched upon the importance of dealing with water, climate change, food nexus. You touched upon the importance of education. I believe these are themes that are very much close to the heart of Dr. Kharraz as well. Also, with his activities as CEO of the Water Energy Climate Expert Network, and I believe he's also going to share with us some insights on sometimes also the technicalities entailed, right, in the implementation of this type of projects on the ground, which entail a lot of capacity building, as Maysoon was actually stressing, technology transfer, and a whole number of things that you're going to mention. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Ilaria. Thanks, Federica, and all the organizers for having me in this beautiful gathering and beautiful city of Lugano. Before going into the subject, 20 years ago, I finished my PhD at the University of Valencia in Spain. I was a pure researcher, developed my research on how can we use satellite data to improve the water use efficiency in agriculture. How can we use satellite data to, for example, to monitor drought in the Mediterranean region, etc. So I was pure researcher. Then I moved to France to work in an international organization called Euro-Mediterranean Water Information System, a sort of international organization dealing with the ministries of water of all the Mediterranean countries. So at that time, I started different kind of work. So I was a researcher, sort of coming from academia. Then I moved to work directly with decision makers, ministers of water in the region. So we have been working developing the cooperation between these countries because they have a lot of things to share between each other in terms of expertise, in terms of know-how, technology, data, etc. And we focused at the beginning on how can we share data and indicators, etc. Because as you know, we cannot manage a resource without measuring it. So it was a challenging work because obviously data is scattered, not harmonized, and not standardized, and also there is an issue of sharing data. A lot of, not only countries, but also departments, the ministries, they don't want to share data with others, all these kind of difficulties. So I had time, I visited Jerusalem first time in 2010, so we were working closely with the Palestinian Water Authority, with the Jordanian Ministry of Water and Irrigation, with the Israeli Hydrological Service. And I witnessed at that time how it's challenging also to work on transboundary water issues because it has a political dimension, it has a lot of things to handle. In 2015, I decided to go for a sabbatical year, and I moved to Sultanate of Oman, which is called by Washington Post a couple of years ago as the Switzerland of the Middle East. Because of the position of Oman, Oman is an interesting player on peace processes in the region. They are actually the key player when it comes to negotiation between the US and Iran, and also the proposal to host a very interesting center called MEDREC, the Middle East Desalination Research Center. This center is a unique center. I think it's one of the unique surviving centers from the peace process of Oslo peace process. It was created in 1996 as a fruit of the working group that started in Madrid in 1991. And the idea was, Oman was hosting the center, and the idea was to get on board Israel, Palestine, and Jordan, and supporting countries like the US, South Korea, Japan, Spain, the Netherlands. Later, we got also Germany and Sweden, and Qatar also. So the idea was, to have a sort of transferable model in which countries that share water, like in this case Israel, Palestine, Jordan, and they have obviously there are political tensions. How can we use technology and water as a tool of peace? In this case, in particular, we focused on desalination. As you know, the GCC, for example, the Gulf countries are relying almost on desalination because they don't have water. So they use desalination of seawater to get fresh water. All the cities like Riyadh, Dubai, Doha, Muscat are almost 100% powered or fed by desalinated water. Israel was in advance as one of the pioneer countries worldwide in terms of desalination technologies. And Palestine and Jordan, obviously, they need, Jordan, for example, is one of the poorest countries worldwide in terms of water resources. So that was the beginning of MEDREC. Obviously, during the years and years, according to what is happening in the ground, obviously there was a sort of a lot of activities, and sometimes obviously MEDREC need to be decreased because of this of the tensions that are happening. But we use it track two dialogues. We were gathering like the representative from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Israel, Palestine, and Jordan in European capitals, and we discuss the day-by-day water issues and how can we develop the cooperation between the three countries. And parallelly, we have the technical representative, so we work on specific things. We have been providing like scholarships for fellows from Jordan, Palestine, master and PhD scholarship, to especially specialized in people developing research on wastewater treatment, on desalination, on transboundary water, etc., on groundwater management, etc. And also we have been doing a lot of training and capacity building, and so we have been visiting Gaza and West Bank, for example, to deliver training. And we have been also trying to fix desalination plants problems in Gaza. So it has been really very useful, and MEDREC demonstrated to be an interesting model that could be used everywhere where we have shared resources, not only water, could be an ecosystem, environment, forest, whatever, and we can around it develop sorts of cooperation. So that's a clear example of what a diplomacy achieve in terms of contribution to peace. But obviously, when we talk about shared water, for example, in many countries, almost 70% of the water coming from abroad. So we have the example of the Nile River basin. So Egypt is sharing water with Sudan, with Ethiopia, with Kenya, etc., many countries. So obviously there are tensions around the Renaissance Dam that Ethiopia built recently. So because of less water, probably will get into Egypt. But again, using water diplomacy could really solve the conflict or contribute to solving the conflict. We have successful models or success stories like the Senegal basin. We have Senegal, Mauritania, Guinea, and Mali. They are sharing the river. They are sharing. They created the Senegal River Basin Organization in 1972. And they are doing an amazing job in a way that, for example, the dam that's built on the river, they are sharing not only water, they are sharing also energy, hydropower, and they are sharing knowledge, expertise, and in a very win-win manner between these countries. So this is a very successful model. We have also the, how we call it, Itaipu Dam in between Brazil and Paraguay. So also another success model. So they own mutually the dam, and they share the energy generated, almost 14 gigawatt, huge dam, I think the third worldwide. And obviously they share water, and also they share, it's about sharing environmental benefit, economic benefit, social benefits, jobs that could be created, but also political benefit, which are lasting peace. So those are some models that we really could be somehow enlightening and useful for other ongoing conflicts right now. And obviously the model that was given by Engineer Maysoon is very interesting. I know that the Water Diplomacy Center created in the Jordan University of Science and Technology that was funded by the Swiss Agency for Development Cooperation, a very interesting center. I hope that would be many centers like that in the region, so that could really develop or build the capacity of the new generation of people who can really manage the shared resources in the future and contribute to the peace in the region. Thank you.
Thank you for giving us a little bit of a broader idea of the range of activities you've been involved in. I think it's very fascinating and inspiring to really see all the potential, right? When it comes to dealing with the technicalities, then you come to successful examples where you do not just share water, right? But you share energy, and this, I think, contributes creating further prospects for dialogue and diffusing tensions and promoting peace. And I think along the same line, so we're going to hear also from Hamza, Saidi, who's not just a MEM alumni, but has become project manager at Konrad Adenauer Stiftung for, in particular, the regional program for energy security and climate change in the MENA region. So I think you're also going to share some experiences of how successful partnerships could deal in dealing with shared water resources could actually bring further trust and dialogue and contribute to peace. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. First of all, it's a pleasure to return to the MEM after 2 years, this time in a different capacity, but really happy to see fellow change makers. And it's a real honor and humbling to be in the presence of everyone, and especially my dear friends and colleagues in the space of water cooperation. A lot of what I have to offer is something that I have learned from them, so I'm appreciative of the opportunity to sit together with them. Actually, very recently, just a couple of months ago, Natasha and I were sitting in a similar situation in a project that I managed in not very far from here, in Cadinaibia and Lake Como, where we brought different players and decision makers somehow, and also experts on water issues, specifically on the Euphrates-Tigris basin. The goal of this gathering and this discussion was to try and come up with potential scenarios for the future. What could this basin look like from until 2040? I will not bore you with all of the findings. This is the report. If everyone is interested, if anyone is interested, you can contact me and I can share it with you, but I will share just briefly 2 scenarios. A scenario that we have titled The Highway to Hell, and this is a scenario basically of a status quo. If nothing is done, if we continue in the current status, we're basically going in a doomed situation where conflict is going to exacerbate even further. The situation is going to be fueled even more with climate change and droughts and further conflicts across the region. And this is definitely something that we don't want, and I believe that each one of you also don't want that. This is why you make the effort to be in such space. The other scenario, which is somehow more likely, hopefully, is a scenario where we are doomed to cooperate. Not necessarily everyone wants to cooperate in the region. Different ideologies, different narratives, different priorities, different agendas. But we are doomed to cooperate if we want to coexist and exist, not just coexist. And this is a scenario where hopefully we come to a common ground and a common understanding of where we can reach a certain agreement. And some of the technical solutions that were shared, the water, energy, food ecosystem nexus presents a solution that can be integrated in that. In my 3.5 points that I will share with you, the next one, I will move from Turkey, Euphrates, Tigris to the Jordan River. And this is a project that we have been working on for the past 5 years, a project where it brings more sensitivity. There is conflicts amongst the countries in the Euphrates and Tigris basin, but in the Jordan River, there is another level of conflict, which requires another level of sensitivity when dealing with such conflict. And in this scenario, we have been cooperating with an organization that you might have heard of or worked with, EcoPeace Middle East, which has a representation in Israel, Palestine, and Jordan. It's at times looked at as an organization that normalizes. So it's most of the time being criticized, but it's the only organization that I am aware of where it exists in a manner and tries to reach a common solution from the ground. And with this organization, we had a more of a secretive dialogue program that was called the Regional Forum. For 2 editions, we had it in the island of Cyprus, because the island of Cyprus represents itself as a neutral ground when it comes to the conflict. And we consulted with representatives from Israel, Jordan, and Palestine if they would be comfortable to come in such a country. And that's what happens, and it's necessary to have such dialogue programs where you provide a space of trust, a space where the different stakeholders can feel encouraged to share with, under Chatham House rules, where their names, their institutions will not be communicated. It's incentivized them to have an honest conversation and to look at things beyond the political conflicts and to look at potential solutions aside from the potential divides. Unfortunately, this program did not take place this year for obvious reasons, because the war has unfortunately put us back a bit in terms of dialogue. There is less of an incentive to communicate with the other now as much as it was before. But I think it's even more important now to sit on the table and talk, because climate change does not wait for anyone, and issues like water will still continue to exist and exacerbate regardless of the conflict. Basically, this is a point that I wanted to also share, is that we have to look at the region generally beyond just the river itself. When we look back at the Euphrates and Tigris Basin, for example, we only look at the countries that are involved. We look at Turkey, Syria, Iran, Iraq, but water exists in beyond just this. We have to look at, for example, the relationship between Afghanistan and Iran. Afghanistan is an upstream country for Iran, and Afghanistan and Iran have always been in conflicts regarding water. Iran always accuses Afghanistan of reducing the flow of water to Iran, and this eventually would also impact how much water Iran would allow to flow to Iraq, for example. So we have to look at things from beyond just what the conflict that it looks like on the regular map that usually the different stakeholders look at when they want to look at a specific basin. I want to bring you a little bit further away from the Middle East and look a bit to North Africa. The MEM has always been on the Mediterranean as a whole, but the focus has, for understandable reasons, been on the Mashrek, Levant, and the conflict in that region. I want to bring you to another potential conflict in North Africa, and we have Algeria and Morocco have not been in great terms for the couple of decades. Though there aren't any major rivers between Morocco and Algeria, but there are aquifers. And when we talk about water diplomacy a lot and water cooperation, we always look at the surface. We look at rivers that people can see easily, flow of water that can easily be measured, controlled through dams and things like that. But with climate change threatening water supply in North Africa and the whole region, and we have countries that rely a lot on agriculture for export, for produce. This leads to a lot of illegal drilling of wells and a lot of illegal pumping of water, depleting the water resources in our aquifers. When you have two countries like Morocco and Algeria that are not in good terms, the potential that is not around water can easily escalate and include water. And we have to really find solutions where we can solve and salvage what can be salvaged before things can escalate to a situation that's of no return. And unfortunately, with the recent developments, it's not promising. Algeria and Morocco are not going well, and they are not cooperating as much. And any potential water conflicts can escalate things even further. And this is where I want to introduce the concept of preventative water diplomacy. We shouldn't wait and create mechanisms for cooperation and diplomacy in conflict resolution for already existing issues. We have to anticipate, and it's easy to anticipate certain issues like that, and I would invite potentially, hopefully, the Blue Peace to have a North Africa kind of office, not just a Middle East office or Southeast Asia one. I think that my other point is that water in general, rivers and transboundary rivers in general should not be looked at only as resources of water. All of these big rivers that exist, the Euphrates, Tigris, the Nile, represent themselves in the narratives and identities and cultures of the nations where they exist. If I ask my fellow Egyptians here, what does the Nile mean to you? They would potentially not say, do not say a drinkable source of water. They would say a lot of things about the Nile. The whole civilization of Egypt has revolved around the Nile. So if there is a threat towards that, it's not just a threat towards water resource, but it's a threat also towards the civilization and an identity. And the Jordan River has representation in also different religions, the Euphrates, Tigris, all are very close to the civilizations where the nations are. So we have to always look at things, not in isolation, but in the connections where they exist. And some technical solutions already try to look at that. The water, energy, food nexus try to look at solutions where we can have, some sort of cooperation. And one of the projects that we have worked on together again with EcoPeace is the Green-Blue deal, which has resulted to a deal that unfortunately did not see the light of day. Is a deal of energy for water between Jordan and Israel. But unfortunately, in our concept note, it included also Palestine. But in reality, it did not have Palestine on the table. Where UAE funds the whole thing, and Jordan gives Israel energy, and Israel gives Jordan water. And of course, with the war and everything, all cooperation has ceased to exist. Unfortunately, we do not have the privilege and the choice not to cooperate, not to have dialogue. We have to empower the new generation of change makers, of diplomats to acquire the essence of good cooperation, because something that I always say is that cooperation and diplomacy are very much like cholesterol. There is bad cholesterol and there is good cholesterol, as much as there is good diplomacy and bad diplomacy. So let's practice good diplomacy and good cooperation, and hopefully we can come up to a stage where we can at least trust each other and trust the willingness to cooperate. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this reality check in a way, but also for stressing the importance of the notion of preventative water diplomacy. And I believe you also touched upon a very critical point that links also very nicely with the previous panel, which is the cultural dimension of water, that I believe is also a point that Natasha perhaps would like to build upon. And perhaps you could also elaborate a little bit on the concept of citizen diplomacy surrounding water projects and water leadership in the implementation of water project. You are a manager at the Geneva Water Hub, so you have a lot of experiences in dealing with a lot of projects, so I would just give you the floor and you can elaborate a bit more. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and it's really a pleasure for me to be here today. So I'm thankful for the organizing committee for the MEM. This is my first experience being here with the youth, although I've been working in the MENA region for 20 years and involved in different projects and initiatives. On a positive note, I think being a part of the MENA region and recognizing that in the MENA we do have at least 9 surface shared water bodies in addition to 17 to 19 shared transboundary water resources really opens up the door, and it gives opportunities for using water in peace building should we actually conduct this diplomacy on the right premises. Jauad mentioned starting off his career, with the EU project, and that's actually where we met. We started working on the water data bank in the region. Hamza has mentioned also several initiatives. Maysoon has mentioned the Blue Peace Middle East mechanism. So in reality, when it comes to water, there have been many excellent initiatives. There's also been many processes in which water was brought into a political processes in order to be able to hopefully assist in peace building. Now, one of the caveats of the projects and the initiatives was that, similar to what Ambassador Thomas had mentioned yesterday, that in order for us to have success and to be able to bring parties to the table, we have compromised the issue of politics. And we have labeled most of these projects under the umbrella of technical assistance. So surely, what was mentioned also by Jauad and the work that was done by Medric, I mean, desalination is a way forward. The reuse of treated wastewater is definitely a way forward. But these are methodologies and technologies, for ensuring new water, additional waters for future generations. But these technologies cannot lead to peace building. They do not replace water rights, and they do not automatically feed into political processes. So that is one of the shortcomings of all of the initiatives that have been led in the MENA region and that have completely focused on the technical side, just assuming that an agreement among technocrats is actually going to automatically spill into a political will to actually take things forward. We've seen that in several initiatives that most of us have been involved in the Geneva initiative, in the Red Sea, Dead Sea Water Conveyance Program that both myself and Maysoon have been involved in. Excellent initiatives, a lot of excellent technical work within the Red Sea, Dead Sea. There were several concrete studies. There was a technical feasibility study, there was an EIA, there was an economic study, a study of alternatives. The process of 10 years of technical work among, the three countries, which actually did not see the light. And the reason why it did not see the light was because maybe, out of, unintentional, but I think all the parties that came to the table had an intention in achieving a peace dividend and in achieving cooperation. But along the way, we had missed some key milestone political issues that were not addressed. And so when it came to the actual implementation, it was not able to take it forward because then, the technical had to go to the political, and the political, authorities said, hold off. These are concrete issues that need to be resolved. And so my key message is that as we engage in projects, in initiatives on the water issue, which opens up a lot of space for cooperation, we should be careful not to avoid addressing the politics of water. It was mentioned that, I think by the ambassador in the earlier session, that culture also has a geostrategic dimension, and water definitely has a geostrategic dimension. So if we want to actually engage, particularly in the MENA region, in water diplomacy, we have to have the courage to first address the political issues and to recognize that we cannot in the MENA region talk only about water sharing. We have to also talk about water sparing. We have to acknowledge that the conflicts are becoming more and more frequent, and all of the armed conflicts in the region, whether it's in Yemen, whether it's in Iraq, whether it's in Syria, whether it's in Gaza, they all have actually securitized water, they have all weaponized water, and they have all basically targeted the vital water infrastructure that is needed for the livelihood of the civilian population. So how do we use water diplomacy with all the opportunities that it offers? How do we actually use it for peace building and not just basically for the delivery of services? By actually observing something that also Wadad had mentioned, that these processes, we need to have international law at the core of these processes. Otherwise, we can engage in them, the international community can invest in them, but then, we will not be able to take them forward when the parties are not at parity. We have today lots of policy legal, institutional frameworks that are global but that are also national that could actually secure that any kind of dialogue, any kind of initiative that is taken forward between the parties, even conflicting parties, can have a starting point if these parties are actually at a parity, if they actually recognize each other as equal partners. And the only way to do that is to anchor it in international law principles. My second point is that it is extremely imperative to revisit the fact that what we need to do, particularly in the MENA region, is to actually protect the water resources. We have to ensure that when a tension arises, when conflict arises, that water resources are off limits, that water resources continue to actually be the tool for livelihood of the civilian populations. My organization, the Geneva Water Hub, is an organization whose mandate actually is to use water for peace building. And we do that basically in different ways. One focuses on sharing water, and we have one approach that is similar to what Hazem has mentioned, that is basically having safe spaces that bring in parties in order to have either formal or informal discussions on topics that are purely and highly sensitive political, but to do so with the introduction of water as an entry point. With our partners, for example, that is without the, we have been engaged since 2018 in using water for peace building in the Sahel. And that kind of platform brings in not only water experts, it brings in land experts, it brings in security experts, and the idea and the objective of all of these dialogues is to try to jointly, through the different expertise and the different considerations, including the security apparatus, to come up with solutions, whether they are governance solutions or they are management solutions, in how could the Sahel populations actually ensure the social cohesion, ensure that access to these water resources can be secured. 2 weeks ago, my colleagues were actually in Mauritania, and together with the local authorities, the UNHCR in Mauritania, they facilitated such a dialogue between the host and the refugee communities. And the idea was to actually engage these communities in an exercise of themselves coming up with solutions on how they could better manage the technical and the management challenges that they face within the largest refugee camp, to be able to ensure that they would be able to have more peaceful relationships among them. Another example is actually the example that has led to the establishment of the Water Diplomacy Center that Jauad mentioned. The Water Diplomacy Center was established based on a recommendation that came from a hydropolitical mapping of the Yarmouk Basin. What that entailed was bringing in researchers, Syrian and Jordanian researchers together in order to map out what was the status in the basin based on first open remote sensing, basically. So at a first stage, a remote sensing was done to all of the biophysical data. The experts were brought in to have a discussion and to be able to come to a consensus or an agreement on the data for the basin that they were both sharing. These kinds of approaches, initiatives, bring people together to be able to have ownership themselves of the water solutions and to be able to actually then later on convey policy recommendations to the political level. The third important, I think, and this is a development that has been happening in terms of water sparing. In April, Slovenia with Switzerland has actually launched in New York a global alliance for sparing water from armed conflict. And this is extremely important for the MENA region. And what that entails is that there is a commitment to be able to protect these water resources so that we could ensure that in any conflict, at least human dignity is preserved. And that is something that is extremely applicable within our context. So what the Global Alliance will do is that they will provide all of the legal instruments for the states that are committed to the protection of water infrastructure and to share lessons on how basically that could be operationalized. So these are some of the examples of what could be done within the space of water if we decide that we want to use it as a vehicle for peace building and not purely for water cooperation technical purposes. So on the second question, I think it was about women. Women, I think, all over are very important in terms of leadership and in terms of inclusivity. With Maysoon, actually, we started in 2017. We conducted a mapping on women in Lebanon, Jordan, and Palestine, because we wanted to understand what active role could women have in terms of leadership in water diplomacy. And we wanted to understand how we could actually empower women. And the approach was that, again, this was mentioned in the previous panel about culture. We wanted to be able, as women from the region, to empower other women in water diplomacy in line with the cultural values that exist within our region. And we wanted to be able to identify what were the key challenges, what were the key opportunities, and what were the key skills that were needed in order for us to be able to have more female water ministers or female heads of water negotiating teams or female directors of water utilities. We followed up on this work actually by teaming up with Global Water Partnership Mediterranean in 2020, and we extended this into 2 more countries, Egypt and Morocco. And there we wanted to actually make the link between the Levant, the Maghreb countries, and the Mashriq. We wanted to see if the challenges and the opportunities among the various geographies of the WANA region were similar in order to be able to assist in building capacity. Now, last year, unfortunately, the war started. And, we had to reconsider because we saw that the status of women, especially in countries where we had conflicts, was different than when we started in 2017. Suddenly, a female engineer that was working at the ministry, that was responsible for water management plans, or a female humanitarian water worker that was a first-time responder who was actually providing services but also providing support, she became herself a victim. She became herself also a negotiator, a mediator on the ground in the absence of actually having centralized authorities on the ground. These women that were working on water issues had to actually be able to mediate access to water, not just for the communities that they were saving, but they were also had to do that for their own families. And so we have to think that when we are empowering women in areas of conflict, that is completely different than empowering women among countries that have peaceful relationships. And we have to consider what kind of tools need to be actually provided for these women in order to empower them. And the third point, I think?
Let's try and see whether we can use the time to open up.
Yes,
the
I
floor,
think that would be better.
I
yes.
think you're running out of time.
Thank you.
And perhaps we can just hear from the audience. Maybe we have time for just one question. Yes. And then we'll wrap up.
Hello, thank you for this fruitful discussion. I just want to reflect on certain point, maybe a comment, and then a following, to be followed with a question. I was hearing different things about the importance of water diplomacy. I mean, the essence of it, just to preserve human rights and preserve human dignity, as many of you has mentioned. At the same time, I was some people were reflecting on the idea of the importance of solving water issues beyond the political sphere. And I'm referring to what you said about EcoPeace and their work in different regional countries, Jordan, Israel, Palestine, and I'm just coming from this area. I found it a bit misleading just because of I'm a bit aware of the work of EcoPeace. I come from a background in working with environment and agriculture back in Palestine. And just when we talk about dialogues, water diplomacy, and with the essence of idea of preserving even basic human rights, including water. Water is not just a resource for life. It's also a political power. It's a tool for domination, a tool of power, a tool of occupation. If you're talking especially that now the political sphere is referring Palestine into the West Bank based on the international law is occupied territories, which means that they don't have Israel has no right to take control of the water resources. And just coming back, working with communities back in Palestine, back in the West Bank of Palestine, people don't have water, literally they don't have water. Not because we don't have access to water, we don't have control of water, and we take our water mainly from the institutionalized Israeli water company, most of the areas inside West Bank, not all of them, which is Mekrot. And just the idea of Palestinian civilian can have some 70 and 80, and excuse me, I'm not being accurate with numbers, liter per day. The Israeli settler living in the occupied territory have 200 to 30 liter per day of allocated water. And if you want to bring parties together to solve an issue, a crucial issues like water, which is an essential for life, how can you bring them together if you don't address the main issue? If you don't also put the right position of each party? It's different when you bring, when you say conflict, you just put an image of people, two stubborn people, two stubborn parties just don't want to negotiate over a piece of cake. But it's not like that. It's people who were deprived from their land and existence and their water resources. So my question is, would you ever be able to water diplomacy contain or include people's right or addressing the main issue and call for action, call for people to get to their basic rights, and then bringing people together to find a solution for everyone? Thank you.
Thank you so much for your question. Perhaps I would let the panelists react to this and to the others' intervention in literally 30 seconds each.
I may start. Thanks for the question. Yeah, definitely, but I totally agree with my colleague Natasha when she mentioned, the need to work for avoiding the weaponization of water, because water is essential for human life, and we cannot use it in conflicts and wars. And this is happening, unfortunately, in many areas where we have now ongoing wars. Obviously, water diplomacy is not about only the technical aspect. Technical aspect is help. Because there is something that is the injustice or whatever is happening in the ground. The other thing is the reality of on daily basis. So people need water. So regardless that you can claim that there is an injustice or whatever is happening, that is put more weight on the political side. But on the other side, technically, we need to release immediate solutions. Like, for example, when we fix the desalination plants and we will provide technical assistance to make it work, so people can get the water to survive. So both things are important, but definitely I agree with, who asked the question, that obviously we need to go beyond that and try to make advocate for the respect of international law and access to water for all the people, in this case in Palestine. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I fully agree with the question, and I understand, the frustration. And I think, we have to be very careful that water cooperation is not water diplomacy. And I am particularly, wary of the fact that sometimes we have to be careful not to assume that any kind of cooperation at the civil society level or within a particular initiative, even if it has, success, is actually a sign that this model works. And I think, the recent and, the past 13 months have proven the success or the validity, or they have actually unmasked the weaknesses in the approaches that we have adopted. And what needs to be done is to actually have a look now and revisit. And we have to think, why did a particular process that seemed to be going forward fail? And that is, I think, the critical takeaway that we have to think about. We have to think about, what does water diplomacy look like within the context of today's conditions? We have seen that even an organization such as MEDRIC, that is anchored in political processes, was not able to bring forward any change in terms of the protection, for example, of the desalination plants in Gaza.
We're running out of time, so I'm not sure if you have okay?
Yeah. Because of what she said, we have agreement Annex 2 in Wadi Araba and Oslo, and it is agreed we discuss. From this, when I joined the Blue Peace, I realized that we need to build the capacity of our negotiator. I looked at the Israeli and the Jordanian, Palestinian much better than the Jordanian. So I feel they need the capacity in order to be able to negotiate and to have their rights in a peaceful way. So yes, what we have agreement, us, Annex 2 and Palestinian, they have. What is in the agreement is followed and agreed. But the issue is what agreement you should reach in order to be fair. And one of the things in the Blue Peace, stop weaponization, what's one of the things. And also we get beyond this. We want to ask the United Nations not to use, if you want to use the water infrastructure as a weapon, it should be like a mass destruction. And we get some resolution of this. It's not only in the Middle East. If you look at what happens when we have ISIL, the first thing they get is Mosul Dam. So they can poison people, they can control. But the idea is to keep aside the water infrastructure and look at it from a humanitarian perspective, not as something like anything that, what happens in Gaza, the first thing they cut water. But this is what happens. Okay, Khalas, thank you.
Of course,
unfortunately, we come to a close.
I think that the question was mostly directed to me, so I deserve some seconds to react. I definitely cannot answer in 30 seconds, but what I can say, to build on what Tasha said, is that we are not doing track 1 diplomacy. We are doing track 1.5 diplomacy. And we are not working on water cooperation, but on water diplomacy. We cannot wait for Trump's son to marry someone and have a father-in-law from Palestine so that things can move forward. So we have to cooperate regardless. We have to do something at least. And this is something positive, I think. We can talk about things, and then things lead to things, and we can go from there. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much to our panelists.